It's still December, and we have another game, or rather two. Bomberman Max Light Hero and Bomberman Max Dark Warrior, localized to Blue Champion and Red Challenger in English, released for the Game Boy Color in Japan and North America, but not in Europe. I will be referring to Bomberman Max as singular sometimes, though. Our first observation is this new edgy rival OC, Max. Yeah, similar to how Keppo has been replaced with Pommy, companion and co-op buddy Black Bomber, who was portrayed as White Bomber's edgier rival, has been more or less replaced by this guy. We'll learn more about him in later games, but first let's try and get over the fact that Bomberman is pulling a Pokemon here. Are we over it? Good, then let's have a look. So somewhere out there are 5 planets. On one of them, Future Star, this AI called Brain is controlling everything, but then a mysterious shadow appears, infiltrates the computer, and it starts acting up and turns every living thing on the other planets into robots, while trying to take over the universe. Dr. Ein gets wind of this and sends Bomberman and Max to beat the rogue AI, save the planets, and rescue the Carabombs living on them. Before setting out, Max pulls Bomberman aside and says, "Hey, let's see who can save the universe first," and they both fly off. You know, I'm not a fan of the archetype, but as edgy rival characters go, Max is actually not a jerk about it. Sure, he's competitive, but he didn't insult Bomberman, he didn't sabotage his ship to get a head start, he didn't do anything mean or counterproductive to the mission. He just challenges him and then goes off to save the universe. That's pretty cool. The main gimmick here is that in Blue Champion we play as Bomberman, and in Red Challenger we play as Max. The characters are functionally identical, save that Max appears to be using lightning bombs, and the Carabombs. If having Red and Blue editions wasn't Pokemon enough, each game has a separate set of Carabombs to collect. Creatures that we're gonna see a few more times, often with some more name shenanigans. You see Shell here? That's gonna be Kaiman later. Putiladon is going to be Pterodon. They all have different element types, fire, electric, earth, and water, that affect each other differently, and yes, you can link up 2 consoles to have the Carabombs fight each other. This takes place in 3 rounds, in each of which you can choose one strategy that consists of 3 moves: attack, defend, special attack, and then you can watch them fight it out. No real rewards for winning, though. Instead of trading, you can link up to fuse 2 Carabombs together to make new ones, while keeping the ones you used. Pommy is now one of the Carabombs instead of being a mimic, and some of his forms are now separate Carabombs or fusions. I should mention this is one of the only Game Boy Color games to use the infrared sensor for linking consoles instead of the link cable. But where do we find the Carabombs? Why, in the main campaign, of course. And here's where we see our traditional Bomberman gameplay again. It's been a while. Or actually it hasn't, there's just been a ton of games doing other things. But there are 2 twists. One is that every stage has a twist to it, not unlike GB2. Clear conditions can be as simple as defeating all the enemies, or sometimes only a certain enemy needs to be defeated, and if you kill the wrong enemy then you have to try the stage again. Or you collect a certain number of food items that also increase the stats on the Carabomb you have equipped for leveling. At the start, we get our first Carabomb, Pommy. For Max, the first Carabomb is Draco. The second twist is that we have the structure of Super 5 again. Every stage has multiple exits, so there are branching paths, and you have to play multiple times to beat everything. This time, when entering a stage you've already beaten, the exits appear immediately, so you don't have to beat the stage again, which is nice. Some of the stages have these purple pads. If you walk on them, it prompts you to use a remote control, an actual one, as in physically point your TV remote control to the Game Boy Color's infrared sensor, leading you to a bonus stage where you can pick up some goodies. Oh, and standard remote control and many other ability power-ups don't carry over from one stage to the next. Only bomb up, fire up, and speed up do. We start on Zaurus Star, which was also the name of a planet in Bomberman 93, so is this in the Magellan solar system? In-game it was changed to Planet Inferno. There are small volcanoes here and meatloafs. The enemies look like, wait, cavemen? Wasn't everything turned mechanical in the intro? As a boss, we face this prehistoric statue thing. There are multiple boss stages in each world, but unlike in Super 5, they are all the same boss, just with different speeds and thus difficulties. We move to World 2, Secret Star, where we're back to Edo period Japan, just a bit more mechanized. The hitboxes in this game are a lot more unforgiving than in past games, making things more challenging than you might expect. Worlds 2 leads to this Japanese traditional theater performer. Up next is Battlestar, with sad, somber marching music, befitting of the setting with dead soldiers, grenades, and the like. Kinda reminds me of the guy in Super 4. Wait a minute, this whole setup is like Super 4. Prehistory, medieval Japan, World War II era, though Super 4 didn't have World War II era. But this time they are planets coexisting at the same time. Wonder how that came to be. Instead of an army dude, we fight this tank. Onwards to City Star, with some, well, city themes. Traffic cones, cars, pickaxes, and this bouncy dragon. What does he have to do with cities? And finally, Future Star. There must have been a time travel plot planned at some point in their development. It is the hardest planet. After all of Future Star's circuits are now controlled the most powerful and insidious supercomputer in the universe, Brain. After some shenanigans with moving platforms, switches and stuff, we face Brain, starting out as a large computer, whittled down to a robot, and eventually just a helicoptery twirly head thing. Upon defeat, we are questioned as to whether this truly is the end. Ah yes, the completion percentage. Unlike in Super 5, the completion percentage actually does affect the ending. We're even rated on it after every game over. The most frustrating part of this game has to be finding not what level you're missing, it's right there, but finding which level leads to it. But after clearing all the stages, Bomberman or Max, depending on the version, returns to the base with all the Carabombs, and congratulates us. The end. Wait, that's it? Ah, only 80%. See, the real main gimmick is that in the individual red and blue editions, certain levels are missing, and you need to link up with the different edition, again with infrared, to send the missing levels over to your friend, provided you've beaten them in your game. The version exclusive levels are nothing special, by the way, just some standard stages. Finally, after beating those, we get to the true ending where both Bomberman and Max return from the mission at the same time and decide to have some Carabomb battles. The end. Wait, that's it? I haven't been mentioning special version releases, but there were some special Japan-exclusive releases of an Ein edition of Bomberman Max, which is just the Blue Challenger version with all the missing levels already unlocked. Did the planets recover? Did Future Star build a new AI to control everything on their planet? What was that dark shadow that made Brain go rogue? Who cares? Let's have some Carabomb battles. Overall, one of the most fleshed-out traditional Bomberman games. Won't be the last we see of the Carabombs, and won't be the last we see of Max either. But that was the last we'll see of the Millennium. And as we go to the year 2000, I should acknowledge something. This chart here ignores large parts of the world, mainly because what games get released there aren't as well documented. Oceania, as part of the PAL region, generally gets the European releases. The rest of Africa and Asia are not well documented, so I can't really say which games came out there. And then there's Antarctica. Just kidding. Latin America. The gaming market there really is a subject of its own, but from what I can tell, sometimes they get the North American version, sometimes they get the European version, sometimes neither, and sometimes the Japan exclusive ones. What? Yeah, unofficial, that is illegal, distribution of games is and always has been a thing, and copyright law isn't enforced as strictly in Latin America. Thus, even in the late 90s and early 2000s, many of the Japan-exclusive Bomberman games were widely distributed there, leading to some very substantial Bomberman fan bases there, especially in Brazil. Now, I don't have the capacity to figure out which games were distributed there and which games weren't, but I just wanted to say, you guys are great, keep up the Bomberman love. I couldn't make this without everything you've contributed. We start the Millennium in February with B-Beat'em Bakugaiden 5 Final Megatune, released exclusively in Japan for Game Boy Color. Based on the second Bakugaiden anime, it is, again, mostly menu navigation, though it seems to be more focused on mechs. Again, Stevie Jimmy has a guide for how to brute force it without knowing Japanese, but I'm holding off on this one too. Sadly, we're going to see a lot more Japan-exclusive titles like this one, such as Bomberman Land, released in December exclusively in Japan for the PlayStation. Our first observation is a very controversial redesign. No, not that one. Ovals. Yeah, I'm not sure if this was supposed to make Bomberman more cutesy, but I do remember seeing this redesign many years ago and not being a fan of it. Luckily, it won't be everywhere. It was mostly relegated to the Land series. Yes, Land is going to be a whole sub-series. The second thing to observe is that after Bomberman, Louie, and Pommy, and a bunch of others arrive on boat, we can roam freely around Bomberman Land, seemingly an amusement park. This movement is more something you'd expect out of an RPG Maker game. We can collect badges to unlock new areas, usually by beating minigames. Yeah, Hudson is pretty well known as the developer of the Mario Party games up until 8, and Bomberman Land can be seen as them dumping a bunch of mini-games into a game, spinning it off of Bomberman, and calling it a series. The third thing to observe is that it's all in Japanese. It is possible to brute force your way through this, but since I'm focusing on plots and stories, I'm going to hold off on this one too. Doesn't mean we won't eventually learn what all these mini-games are.